Okay, we're gonna go over a blind bearing puller situation. Now, your two styles typically of a blind bearing puller would be your puller attachment hooks to a slide hammer. You get all that set up, and then this is pretty easy to figure out. You pull on the weight, you get it hooked in, and this forces the bearing out. Okay, so the other style would be this kind of setup here with the bolt that turns on this part here. So this is the one that people usually end up damaging the tool when you don't quite understand how it works. So we'll just do it real quick and go over it. So the application we're using here today, you can kind of go either way on this one, but it's kind of an odd one. So what we're doing is in this side cover, there's an oil seal on this side. Now you probably could push this bearing out so it's like arguably not even a blind bearing puller situation, but whatever, you get the point. I think pushing on this oil seal to push this bearing out might be a little tricky, so that's why I'm gonna go this route. So, but yeah, we're gonna take this bearing out of here. So to do that, we will take our tool. So the first thing you're going to do is select the right size puller. That's going to be, you want something that fits pretty snug, but you don't have to force in. Sometimes you have to kind of make a compromise. This one fits pretty much just right. So you can kind of put it down on your inside diameter of your bearing and see that it's pretty close. So what you're going to do is just flex it a little bit. This'll the sides of it will squeeze in when you push on it, and then you'll hear it kind of bottom out, and now it's clear on the other side of the bearing. Okay, so now we've got that portion in. Next, you have this basically as a wedge that goes down into the puller. So you're going to thread that in, and if you purchase a kit, I would say you can get a kit that has both, like this one, both the slide hammer and the bolt style puller in one kit. That way you just kind of have them all. So all these pieces I'm showing and going over here will be in your kit. So you get this piece in, and then you're just going to, you don't have to go crazy here, but you're just going to get that in there. You're just going to turn this. So what that's doing is we're turning this, it's expanding the puller, so it's really going to lock onto the bearing. So sometimes you might want to lift up on a little bit and hold it against the inside diameter of the bearing as you tighten this down, and then once you get it snug, you'll feel it. It's pretty in there pretty good. So then this piece goes on. Now this is adjustable. You can loosen up these two bolts and slide this in or out to make it fit your application. You just want to check down here at the bottom and make sure that this portion of the tool is not going to interfere with the bearing as it pulls up out of there. So then, now there's sometimes with this piece there's some spacers and stuff you can use to adjust it to fit your needs. This one I think we can get away with just the bolt and the nut. So you're going to put this in here, and then you just thread this down, and you don't even have to like thread it. Just make sure you get enough threads in there so it's going to grab securely. And if you want to, you can go ahead and thread it all the way in to make sure till it bottoms out. I'm actually going to stop about there, but you don't want to go in too far, and when you go to pull it out, then you don't want to damage the tool by forcing it into the puller down here. So that's the basic setup right here. Now, as in any bearing application for removal, you could grab, I've got laying over here like a heat gun, you know, just for an example. I don't think this is going to be too bad, we'll see, but like heating up the aluminum around the bearing will make it much easier. The aluminum is going to expand quicker than the steel, and by heating this up, it's just going to make the whole process easier for the bearing to come out. So we'll just, you're probably going to need to heat it more than that. It's just an example. Okay, so now this is where most people go wrong. So once you're ready to pull, what you do is you hold the top and you turn the bottom. A lot of times people get confused and they try to turn the bolt. When you turn the bolt, you end up bottoming out in the tool, and then you ruin the threads on the end of it, and then you're gonna have to find another bolt. So you hold this still, the bolt, and then you start to turn the nut, and that essentially starts to lift it, and that'll start to pull it out. Now this one is going to be a little bit tricky because the cover is going to want to rotate, but I think it's starting to move here. So this can take a little while. It's not the fastest thing. The slide hammer is a little more exciting and violent, if you will, when it rips the bearing out. And you'll see the bearing slowly start to move, and then it should start to get easier as you turn it. So just keep slowly holding and turning. And sometimes, you know, if you run out of threads, that's where you might have to just loosen it up, readjust, back the bolt out a little bit. Like I said, you don't have to thread it all the way in. Just don't thread it 2 or 3 turns so it can rip the threads out. You want to have a good, secure amount of threads holding it in there. And then you just keep going. Turning the nut, not the bolt. And this is where if you did this a lot, maybe you get like a ratchet wrench or come up with your own setup, you know, that works a little more efficiently. But this is not something you typically have to do a lot. And there it is. Bearings out. So then to get it out, you just simply so you know, this part was never tight, so I can just loosen this up by hand. Take that off, take that out. Now, sometimes it can be a little tricky to get the bearing off of here, and you want to use a new bearing when you're going back together anyway, so you can just kind of take it and maybe take a hammer and give it a little tap, or here, oh yeah, wait, hold on. See, I missed a step. It's easy to do. So next, it's never going to come out if we don't do this part first. Let's see if that's the right size. Yeah, so we've got to loosen this up, the part that's squeezing it. I'm going to be tapping on it all day long. So then, take that out. Then, it won't come off, like I said, by hand. That's when you can kind of maybe even hold this, give it a little tap with a hammer, and then it'll come right out of there. But yeah, don't do that. Don't do what I did and forget to loosen up the tool first, or you'll be there all day. That's the basic idea of how to do it. And like I said, if you're going to buy a set of these, usually they come with most of the common sizes, and for not that much more, you can get the slide hammer with it. Because a lot of applications, the slide hammer will work, and you don't have to go through this whole setup. But sometimes this applies more even force. So like on a really tricky bearing, it's going to be the easier route. But that's basically all there is to it.